Hello, welcome back to the channel. After a quiet day of visiting Colmar, we take the car again and in 15 minutes we find our next destination of Riquewihr. A small village of about 1,200 inhabitants and which is also within the struggle of Alsatian wines. As for parking, the options there are all paid, although the most recommended is to park in the parking lot of Vignerons, which is in front of the town hall and by which we can start the visit. The old city hall was located in the center of the population and was demolished in 1798. The new building in neoclassical style was built in 1809, near the lower door demolished in 1808. From here we enter the main street, Général de Gaulle Street, which passes through the population of the east-west. Along this street, Général de Gaulle Street, with typical Alsatian-style constructions, we can see in the first place the Schickhardt House, built in 1606 by Heinrich Schickhardt, architect at the service of Duke Frederick I of Gothenburg. Very close we find the Gratte-Ciel or skyscraper, which with its 5 floors and 25 meters of height is one of the tallest wooden houses in Alsace. Like all our visits to the villages of Alsace, it is essential to get lost in the streets that come out of the main street. Such as the Street of the Crown, where we find the Disler Mansion, a mansion built in the year 1610. In the Renaissance style of Rhineland. Outstanding within Riquewihr in any street, the quantity of cour or courtyards, in which you can observe large master houses. We return to Général de Gaulle Street and from the tourist office, we continue our walk along the street. Very close to the tourist office, we find one of these curious courtyards, the so-called nobles of Berckheim Courtyard, in whose house that is located at the bottom of the courtyard, and that dates from 1523. We can observe a sun clock that adorns the octagonal tower. Following our journey through Général de Gaulle Street, we reach the Dolder, which in Alsatian means the highest point, the summit, and which fulfilled the functions of both a bell tower as a guard tower or door of the upper part of the city, being the most emblematic monument of Riquewihr, built in 1291 and has a height of 25 meters. Around it on Général de Gaulle Street, I can observe a whole sample of characteristic Alsatian houses with their wooden trams. Before returning to the starting point, as we always comment, It is recommended to get lost in the different streets that come out of the main street, and that will show us the charm of this small medieval village. We left Riquewihr, and as we still have a little time before the sunset, we decided to visit the Munster Valley. This valley, located in the heart of Alsace, is one of the largest and most beautiful valleys in the Alsatian part of the High Vosges, and in which, surrounded by hills and small mountains, it is a real pleasure to drive, offering visitors a varied range of colors, depending on the season of the year in which you visit. The Munster Valley consists of 16 municipal terms, in which Munster is the capital of the canton, and we want a very quick visit before the sun goes down. Munster, which has about 5,000 inhabitants, is located in the center of the valley in an area known as the Small Switzerland, for its geographical characteristics and with human particularities such as the way of life of the mountaineers called Morka, or a specific local dialect. In addition to being the original center of cheese production with Munster denomination of origin, one of the cheeses so to speak the most pestile that exist, but that if you dare to try it is dead. As for parking, both the parking of the Hall of Fests and the park of the Market Square are free, and you can park without problems. As usual, the location of the parking lot was found on Google Maps. We parked in the Market Square and received us very loudly. The Market Square is the historic heart of the city, and as the Munster visit will be very short, we will focus the visit around this square. In it we will see its town hall built in 1550 in Renaissance style, and whose facade was catalogued as a historical monument in 1928. On one side of the square we find the building that stands out most of all Munster, the Protestant church, built between 1867 and 1873 in Neo-Roman style. Finally, our quick visit approaches us to the ruins of the Benedictine Abbey of St. Gregory. Founded around 660 and sold as national property, closing its doors in 1791. It was one of the oldest abbeys in Alsace, and Munster owes it its name and existence. We finish here our quick visit to Munster, for the next day to go to one of the places, which is imperative to visit on a trip to Alsace. The dawn is cloudy and quite cold, but this does not take away the desire to visit a castle with 9 centuries of history, located at a strategic point at the top of a mountain. We refer to the castle of Haut-Koenigsbourg, whose silhouette rises majestically over all the vineyards. Built in the 12th century, this castle has been for centuries the witness of conflicts and rivalries between lords, kings and emperors, and going through the gate of the castle of Haut-Koenigsbourg is like entering the universe of the Middle Ages. As we climb the road to the castle, the temperatures are going down and we are receiving snow, which is noticed both in the cunits and in the trees. Situated at an altitude of 755 meters above the Stoffenberg mountain, which extends from west to east over the plain, the first time this castle is mentioned is in the 12th century. This rocky sphere was at the intersection of important trade routes, the wheat and wine route, from north to south, and the salt and silver route from west to east. As for parking, you will have no problem as there are more than enough parking spaces on the road of access to the castle. From the accesses, we have an incredible panorama of the entire plain that surrounds the castle, which denotes its strategic importance, as discovered by Frederick of Hofstaufen, called the Tuat, Duke of Swabia, able to observe in the clearest days all the Alsatian plain, the forests, the Black Forest and even the Alps. As for the price of the entrance, it has a maximum price of €9, which as we will discover during the visit is worth paying. After purchasing the corresponding entries, we access the castle by the door where there is the shield of arms of the Tierstein, to which it was donated in 1479 as a feud by the Habsburgs and which reconstructed it, and endowed it with a defensive system adapted to artillery. We enter the lower courtyard, which contains on the right the squares and the set of buildings that provide autonomy of the castle, and in the center the reproduction of a 15th century fountain consecrated in Eguisheim. The only access to the building is made by the tower and then by a staircase protected by pebbles. A door and an elevated bridge over the pit allow us to enter the building. We arrive at the courtyard, where we find a well of 62 meters in depth and the cellars, where you can see an exhibition of the reconstruction of the castle in the early 20th century by William II. We then go to the inner courtyard, where the kitchens are located, in which a frog and 2 fireplaces are still preserved. By a polygonal staircase we access the second floor, where we find several rooms. In one of the rooms, the so-called room of the Kaiser, we can see on the roof an imperial eagle and the blasons, which mark the political character of this room. As a curiosity of many of the rooms, we will find ceramic stoves decorated with tiles of different colors. Another of the rooms is the so-called Lorraine room, whose furniture comes from this province and was gifted by the Lorraines to the emperor. By a polygonal staircase, we go down to the first floor, where the first thing we find is the chapel, with its tribune and a lateral opening that allows to receive the faithful. From the chapel, we access the so-called hunting trophy room, profusely adorned with different hunting trophies on its walls. The next room is the arms room, where different laurels, swords, ballasts and armor are presented, as well as a reproduction of an imposing green-barred ceramic stove. We leave these rooms on the first floor by a Leven bridge, which crosses the pit to separate the eastern building from the garden. From the gardens, we have access to the so-called Grand Bastion that was built to serve as protection and ensure the defense of the building. In the Grand Bastion, we again find an exhibition with photographs and elements of the reconstruction of the castle, which gives us an idea of the state so ruinous that it was when its rebuilding began. Behind a staircase, a leafy bridge accessing the artillery platform. In the monumental South Tower, the openings offer a wonderful view into the woods and into the plain, and from the North Tower of the Great Bastion two castles, Ortenburg and Frankenberg, are divided over the neighboring peaks. You can also admire the valleys where merchant convoys passed, thus perfectly understanding the strategic role of the castle. The platform is equipped with cannon reproductions showing the evolution of artillery from the 15th to the 18th century. We ended a visit to the north side Leazes, built as a corridor that facilitated the movement of the garrison, and which could accommodate some services, in addition to increasing the depth of the defense. We ended our visit with some sadness, as we practically finished our visit to Alsace, but at the same time with some excitement, since we will begin very soon the visit to the Black Forest.